The strange signal did not arrive with any warning. It slipped quietly into the Imperial Observatory's receivers during a calm, uneventful night shift. The workers there were used to routine tasks, checking star charts, measuring radiation from distant suns, and making sure nothing unusual drifted too close to the Empire's borders. Most days were slow. Most nights were even slower. They rarely found anything exciting, and when they did, it was usually just a comet or a drifting piece of forgotten machinery. That night seemed like all the others. But then the instruments caught something they had never seen before, a signal that did not match any known pattern. At first, the staff thought it must be interference. Maybe a faulty antenna, maybe a miscalculated frequency bounce. The Empire's space was full of odd reflections and echoes. Signals often traveled through gas clouds and came out sounding weird. So the workers logged it and prepared to clean the data, but the signal did not disappear. It was steady, strong, and strangely organized. It pulsed like a heartbeat. It didn't fade or break. It felt almost alive. The staff alerted the senior analysts. They gathered around the main screen, watching the pattern shift in ways no natural signal ever could. It wasn't random. It wasn't noise. It had structure layers of repeating shapes, almost like a coded message. When they slowed it down, they realized the signal was too clean to be natural. It had intention behind it. They sent the data to the Empire's Central Research Division, hoping experts there would have answers. But instead of clearing up the mystery, the experts only added new questions. They discovered that the signal was encrypted using a method no Imperial scientist recognized. It was too advanced, too careful, too elegantly designed. Whoever made it understood mathematics and physics on a level far beyond the Empire's finest minds. The researchers tried every decoding tool they had. One by one, the tools failed. They brought in older systems to check if maybe the new ones were reading it incorrectly. Those failed too. They tried experimental programs, thinking maybe the signal used a strange form of compression. Nothing worked. Finally, after days of non-stop work, an intern, not a scientist, not a commander, just someone with tired eyes and stubborn curiosity, suggested something simple. What if the signal decrypts in a way we're not used to? What if it's designed for something older? They tried decoding the signal using ancient digital methods, ways the Empire hadn't used in hundreds of years. To their shock, the encryption cracked open almost instantly. The screens lit up with symbols, shapes, and blueprints. At first, the researchers didn't understand what they were seeing. The designs were too strange, too perfect. They seemed to break half the known rules of engineering. And yet, they worked. Everyone in the room grew silent. They were staring at technology far beyond anything their empire had ever created. Engines that folded space in ways the Empire thought impossible. Power generators that needed almost no fuel. Shields strong enough to survive direct hits from stars themselves. Even small devices seemed capable of unbelievable things. The most confusing part was the style of the design. It wasn't alien in the way Imperial scientists expected. It had a familiar touch, almost like something from a forgotten past. The shapes, the mathematical patterns, the construction methods, everything felt strangely human. One researcher whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. Who built this? The oldest historian in the room stared long at the designs. He looked troubled, almost frightened. Finally, he said the word everyone else was too nervous to say: humans. A cold silence filled the room. Humans were a myth-old stories told to entertain children or warn young cadets not to wander too far into unknown space. According to the legend, humans were an ancient species that existed long before the Empire. Some stories said they vanished peacefully. Others said they destroyed themselves. And some claimed they simply walked away from the galaxy, leaving everything behind. The Empire never took these stories seriously. No actual proof had ever been found. Until now, but the data did not stop. As they studied deeper layers of the signal, they found something even more unbelievable. The blueprints were not just designs, they contained instructions, notes, and problem-solving methods so advanced that the Empire's top engineers struggled to understand even the simplest parts. It was as if human technology had evolved far past the point of being understandable. It made the Empire's greatest inventions look like toys. Worried but unable to ignore the importance of the discovery, the researchers informed the Imperial Council. The message traveled fast first local commanders, then to regional leaders, and finally to the highest authorities in the Empire. By dawn, the Emperor himself was reading the report. At first, the Imperial Council dismissed the discovery as a prank. They believed someone had crafted an elaborate joke to embarrass the research division. But after the Emperor requested a direct demonstration, the council members had no choice but to watch. The researchers projected the human blueprints in front of them, clean, sharp, and unmistakably real. Even the most skeptical leaders leaned forward, their eyes narrowing with growing unease. They saw equations that bent reality. They saw engines that moved without propulsion. They saw power sources that should not exist. One council member asked, "Is this technology even possible?" The head researcher answered softly, "If the creators were truly human, yes." The room grew cold. After hours of debate, fear silently crept across every face. If humans created machines like this, then they were far beyond anything the Empire could match. If they were still alive somewhere, hidden in the darkness of space, they might be observing the Empire right now, watching, waiting, judging. To most citizens, humans were fantasy. But to the Imperial Council, this discovery meant something much larger. It meant the Empire was not the most advanced power in the galaxy. It meant someone out there could surpass them without effort. And worst of all, it meant that if humans ever returned, the Empire would be unprepared. Some council members argued they should ignore the signal and pretend it didn't exist. Others insisted they should investigate immediately. A few whispered that it might be safer to destroy the evidence. But no one dared to act without the Emperor's command. Finally, after a long and heavy silence, the Emperor spoke. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the tension beneath it. "We must uncover the truth. If humanity still exists, we must know. If they do not, then we must understand how their technology survived. Prepare a small, discreet exploration fleet. Do not provoke anything. Do not disturb anything. You will go only to observe and report." The room bowed in agreement. Orders were issued. Ships were prepared. Engineers worked day and night to enhance sensors, strengthen hulls, and build new equipment for the journey. Nobody said it openly, but everyone involved felt the same quiet fear. They were stepping into unknown territory, connected to a civilization far greater than their own. Meanwhile, across the Empire, rumors began to spread. People whispered about secret discoveries and ancient beings. Some believed humans were harmless, gentle explorers from the old stories. Others feared humans were powerful and unpredictable, capable of shaping galaxies with their technology. But the truth was still hidden, floating quietly in the depths of space. As the exploration fleet prepared to launch, the scientists studying the signal made one more shocking discovery. Beneath all the layers of data, below the blueprints and technical instructions, they found a small message. It was simple, clear, and written in a language both old and familiar human language. It said, "Do not search for us." The researchers stared at the message, unsure whether it was a warning, a request, or something else entirely. But the Empire was already in motion, and curiosity outweighed caution. The fleet was ready. The coordinates from the signal pointed deep into uncharted space. Whatever waited there was older than the Empire, older than its history, older than its pride, And as the first ships prepared to jump into the unknown, one quiet truth settled over everyone involved. They were not alone. The exploration fleet moved quietly through space, leaving the safety of imperial borders behind. The ships were not large or impressive. They were chosen for one reason only. They were quiet, almost invisible on long-range sensors. The Empire didn't want attention. They didn't want to appear aggressive or curious. They wanted to observe without being noticed, just as the Emperor had ordered. Inside the main ship, the crew worked with a mix of excitement and unease. No one knew what they were going to find. Some believed they would discover old ruins from a lost human civilization. Others imagined a small abandoned outpost, maybe a forgotten research station, drifting alone in the void. A few secretly hoped to meet living humans, even though they knew it was unlikely. The ship's screens showed the coordinates from the mysterious signal. The journey was long, passing through silent regions of space where even comets rarely traveled. Days passed, then weeks. The crew talked quietly during their meals, sharing theories and telling old stories about humans they had heard as children. Some stories painted humans as wise travelers. Others described them as restless wanderers who never stayed in one place for long as they moved deeper into uncharted space. The stars slowly thinned out. The region ahead was darker, colder, and strangely empty. Space was rarely this quiet. Even the ship's automated systems seemed unsure, flashing small alerts that simply said, "Low data environment." It felt like entering a forgotten corner of the universe. Finally, the fleet reached the last stretch of their journey. The coordinates pointed toward a distant point of faint light. At first, the crew thought it was a dying star, but the sensors began showing readings none of them recognized. The light was too focused, too stable, too controlled. It wasn't a natural object. The ship slowed as they approached the site. The closer they got, the more the crew realized they were not looking at a star at all. They were looking at something built around one dot. It was enormous, far bigger than anything the Empire had ever created. A structure shaped like a vast ring wrapped around a neutron star. Thousands of metallic panels shimmered in the dim light, reflecting soft glows across the ship's windows. It didn't move violently like other star-based machines. It didn't pulse or shake. It simply existed, calm and steady, like something that had been operating perfectly for a very, very long time. The crew stared in silence. They had trained their whole lives to understand engineering and physics, but this was beyond anything they knew. The structure looked old, yet it had no damage, no cracks, no missing pieces. It looked as if it had been built yesterday, even though the technology was beyond anything the Empire had ever imagined. The ship's captain told the crew to run scans. They searched for signs of life, energy spikes, or movement. Nothing changed. The structure was active, but it seemed to be running itself without supervision. There were no ships guarding it, no communication signals, no warning beacons. It was just there, quietly gathering energy from the star and powering itself with effortless grace. One scientist whispered, "Whoever made this didn't build something. They built a miracle." The captain ordered the ship to move closer, but with great caution. They didn't want to touch anything or disturb anything. They only wanted to observe. As they floated nearer, the sensors detected small symbols etched into parts of the structure. They looked exactly like the symbols found in the original signal. Human patterns. The crew felt a cold wave of realization wash through the room. The legends were not just stories. Humans really had created things like this. They had built structures around stars as if it were normal. The crew began recording everything, every pattern, every reading, every tiny detail. They wanted to send all the information back to the Empire so the scientists could study it. Some of the younger crew members felt excited, almost overwhelmed with wonder. Others felt uneasy. They didn't know what the Empire would do with this discovery. Would it inspire them? Or frighten them? As they continued scanning, something strange happened. The ship detected a sudden burst of energy. The crew panicked for a moment, thinking the structure might activate some kind of defense system. But the energy wasn't aimed at them. It was just a natural pulse from the star, redirected by the structure in a perfectly controlled way. The machine didn't notice them at all. It was busy with its own work, whatever that was. Then something even stranger happened. A quiet voice filled the ship's speakers. It wasn't loud or threatening. It sounded almost calm, like a recorded message left behind long ago. The language was old human dialect, but the translation systems recognized it easily. You were warned not to follow. Every person on the ship froze. The voice didn't continue. It didn't repeat. It simply said those 6 words and then disappeared. The crew looked at each other, unsure if they should be afraid or curious. The message didn't say, "Go back," or "Stay away." It sounded more like a reminder something humans expected others to already know. A rule they believed was understood. One crew member finally spoke in a shaky tone, "Are we in danger?" The captain didn't answer immediately. He watched the sensors, waited for any sign of activity from the structure, and listened for anything else from the unknown voice. But everything stayed silent. "I don't think it's dangerous," the captain finally said. "If humans wanted to stop us, they would have." This message, it feels like a warning from the past. The crew nodded slowly, but no one felt fully reassured. They continued gathering data carefully. They wanted to understand the purpose of the structure. Why had humans built something so large and complex? Why had they left it running? Were there others like it? How old was it? How powerful? Hours passed, and the crew learned one important thing. The structure wasn't just a generator. It was something more. It interacted with the star in a way that suggested communication, not just energy collection. It almost felt like the structure was listening to the star, or talking to it. The idea made no sense, but the readings were clear. One scientist said quietly, "This isn't a machine. It's like an ecosystem." The more they studied, the more confused they became. Everything humans built seemed to work together in ways the Empire had never imagined. Their technology was simple, in one sense clean, efficient, perfect. But at the same time, it was too advanced to truly understand. It didn't rely on force or complexity. It relied on precision and harmony. The crew sent all their findings back to the Empire through a secure channel. They took extra care to include every tiny detail, even those that seemed unimportant. The Empire wanted answers, and this discovery raised more questions than it solved. Before they left, the crew took one last look at the structure. It didn't glow any brighter or make any noise. It simply continued its silent work around the star. A human creation, left alone in the darkness, still running flawlessly after who knew how many centuries. The captain gave the order to turn the ship around. As they drifted away, one final thought hung in the air, unspoken but felt by everyone. If this is what humans left behind long ago, what were they capable of when they were still here? And even more unsettling, what were they preparing for? The fleet began its journey home, carrying answers that would shake the Empire's beliefs, and questions that would unsettle its future. When the exploration fleet returned, the Empire expected a normal report, something simple, something easy to understand. But the moment the first data packages reached the Imperial capital, everything changed. Nothing in the Empire's long history had prepared them for the information that arrived. The readings, the recordings, the images of the star-wrapped structure, all of it spread through the research centers like wildfire. The first reaction from many leaders was disbelief. They thought the crew had made a mistake. They thought the recordings were altered, or the sensors glitched. So the Empire's top scientists reviewed every second of the footage, every scan, every reading. They checked and rechecked until they were exhausted. Everything was real. The structure around the star wasn't a trick. It wasn't an illusion. And the message, those quiet words saying they had been warned, was as real as the ship's own engines. Slowly, fear began to spread, starting softly in research rooms, then drifting through command halls, and finally reaching the Imperial Council itself. The Empire prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in known space. Its ships traveled faster than anything else. Its stations were massive, its universities filled with the brightest minds. But after seeing what humans had created, the Empire suddenly felt small. The Imperial Council called an emergency meeting. Every seat was taken. Every leader arrived with heavy expressions, knowing something important was happening. The recording of the human-built structure played on a wide screen in front of them. The room stayed silent as they watched the enormous ring shimmer against the star's light. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, a council member asked, "How old is this thing?" A researcher answered, "We can't estimate it accurately. It could be thousands of years old. It could be older than the Empire itself." Another leader frowned. "And it's still working?" "It's not just working," the researcher replied softly. "It's perfect. It hasn't aged. It hasn't weakened. It's like time hasn't touched it." This made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The Empire couldn't build anything that lasted more than a few decades without repairs. The idea of a structure surviving untouched for possibly thousands of years felt impossible. Someone else asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "Are humans still alive?" "We don't know," the researcher said. "But whatever they built, it was made with a level of understanding far beyond our own. If they are alive somewhere, they are ahead of us by a distance we can't even measure." The room grew even quieter. Outside the council chambers, news spread quickly through the Empire, even though officials tried to keep it secret. People talked in whispers on transport stations, in markets, in quiet corners of cafes. Everyone seemed to know that something had been found. They didn't know the details, but they could sense the tension. Some citizens felt excited. They believed humans would return as peaceful travelers. They imagined friendly contact, new knowledge, shared understanding. But others felt uneasy. If hidden human technology existed in deep space, what else might be out there? What had humans left behind? And most of all, why had they left that message saying not to follow? In the weeks that passed, more analysis of the data revealed even stranger details. The energy readings from the structure didn't match any known type of power. It wasn't nuclear, wasn't solar, wasn't anything the Empire could replicate. The structure didn't just take energy from the star, it interacted with it. It helped stabilize the star's output, smoothing out irregularities and balancing its rotation. Some scientists believed it was a form of star maintenance. Others believed it was an energy system so advanced that the Empire couldn't even guess its purpose. The Empire's engineers got headaches trying to understand the human blueprints. Some of the instructions were so precise that even the Empire's most advanced machines couldn't produce the required materials. It would take entire factories working flawlessly for decades to make just one small component. That realization hit the Empire hard. If humans were capable of this level of design ages ago, then the Empire was not even close to matching them. Their pride, their confidence, their belief in their own superiority, everything cracked. The Imperial Council ordered more meetings, but every meeting ended with more questions than answers. Some leaders wanted to build an alliance with humanity if they ever returned. Others wanted to avoid them completely, fearing they might see the Empire as a nuisance or a threat. A few wanted to imitate human technology, but even the idea of copying it seemed foolish. What frightened the council the most wasn't the structure. It was the message. You were warned not to follow. It didn't sound angry. It didn't sound harsh. It sounded calm, almost gentle. But that made it even more unsettling. Why did humans think others should not follow? What danger did they believe existed? Did they leave the galaxy because of something they discovered? Did they create structures like this to protect themselves? Or to protect others? One researcher brought up a theory that chilled the whole council. What if humans didn't leave because of fear? What if they left because they reached a point where staying didn't matter anymore? The idea was shocking. The Empire had always believed that the galaxy was full of challenges, stars to explore, resources to gather, new systems to develop. Leaving all that behind seemed strange. But what if humans had moved beyond the galaxy itself? What if their technology allowed them to explore places the Empire didn't even know existed? A leader leaned forward and asked, if they did leave, will they come back? No one answered. Meanwhile, academic centers across the Empire scrambled to rewrite everything they taught. Physics classes changed. History textbooks changed. Engineering workshops changed. The discovery of human technology forced everyone to admit that the galaxy was bigger, older, and more complex than they believed. The Imperial citizens had mixed reactions. Some were afraid. Some were fascinated. Some didn't believe it at all. But every person could feel the shift in the air. The Empire was standing on the edge of something huge. Something that could change everything. One evening, a group of young students sat together outside their learning hall, watching a hologram of the human-built ring around the star. One of them said softly, if humans could build that, imagine what else they made. Another replied, maybe this is only a small piece of their world. The third student asked the question that so many others wondered about. If humans come back, will they treat us like equals? Or like children trying to understand grown-up ideas? None of them had the answer. Back in the capital, the Imperial Council gave new instructions to research divisions. Study every detail of the human blueprints, but do not attempt to build anything. Not yet. Not until they understood more. They didn't want to risk activating something they couldn't control. They didn't want to create a mistake that might attract human attention in a bad way. They also sent out discreet patrols to nearby sectors, hoping to find additional signs of human presence. Not to interfere, just to observe. But every search group returned with the same result. Nothing. No human ships. No human colonies. No abandoned stations. No signs of recent activity. It was as if humans had truly vanished long ago, leaving behind pieces of their brilliance scattered across the galaxy, like quiet reminders of a time when they walked among the stars. The Empire's leaders gathered for one final meeting that month. A sense of uncertainty hung in the air. The Emperor listened carefully to every report, every analysis, every theory. After a long silence, he said, we are not facing a threat. We are facing the truth. Humans existed. Humans built wonders. And humans warned us for a reason. Our task now is not to fear them. Our task is to understand the truth behind their message. Across the Empire, people sensed the same thing. The galaxy suddenly felt larger, deeper, and more mysterious. The discovery of human technology didn't just shock the Empire. It humbled it. But beneath all the confusion, all the worry, and all the excitement, one feeling grew stronger every day. Something was coming. Maybe a return. Maybe a revelation. Maybe something beyond imagination. Whatever it was, the Empire knew one thing clearly. The story of humans was not over. The discovery of human technology changed the Empire's mood completely. What started as curiosity slowly became a quiet tension that everyone could feel. People walked a little faster in public places. Officials spoke in softer voices. Scientists slept less and worked more. Even the sky watchers, who normally enjoyed peaceful nights staring at the stars, now found themselves looking up with new questions in their hearts. Were humans watching them? Were humans coming back? Or had humans left something behind that the Empire still didn't understand? Across the capital, the research centers stayed busy day and night. Every detail about the star-wrapped structure was studied again and again. Everyone wanted to find answers, but the more they learned, the stranger everything became. The blueprints made sense only in small pieces. When anyone tried connecting everything together, the full picture looked too advanced to be real. Some scientists believed humans must have discovered a new kind of physics. Others argued humans had simply gone far beyond the Empire's imagination. A few whispered that humans might have become something more than a normal species, something different, something transformed by the knowledge they gained. But none of these ideas explained the message. You were warned not to follow. That simple line affected everyone. It echoed in meetings, in conversations, in quiet thoughts late at night. What had humans meant? Why didn't they want others to follow them? Was the message meant to protect others? Or protect humans themselves? The Imperial Council needed answers, but they did not want to act out of fear. So they gathered their best diplomats and thinkers in a private chamber. They didn't search for threats. They searched for meaning. One of them suggested that humans might have understood something the Empire didn't. Maybe humans saw danger far beyond known space. Perhaps they found something out there that made them leave. Or maybe they discovered that their path was not meant for others to follow. Another diplomat thought differently. He believed the warning wasn't about danger at all. Maybe humans left because they wanted other civilizations to grow on their own. Maybe they didn't want their technology to shape the universe too early. Perhaps their message was a reminder that each civilization must walk its own path. That idea was comforting. For a moment, the tension inside the chamber softened. But it didn't last long. One leader asked a question that stirred the room again. If humans wanted to stay hidden, why leave such a massive structure behind? Why not take everything with them? No one had an answer. Meanwhile, far from the council halls, everyday citizens reacted differently. Some were excited. Some were nervous. Some even built small models of the human star structure and placed them in their windows like symbols of curiosity. Children asked their parents stories about humans. Some adults made small jokes to hide their worry. But underneath the surface, everyone felt the same thing. The Empire was not alone in the universe. And it never had been. A month after the exploration fleet returned, something unexpected happened. The Empire's deep space sensors picked up a faint signal from a distant region, another signal that matched the human pattern. This time, it wasn't a blueprint. It wasn't instructions. It was a simple pulse. Slow, steady, almost like breathing. The moment the scientists detected it, they froze. The signal was weak, but definitely real. It came from a sector even farther out than the first structure, somewhere beyond known charts, a place no Imperial ship had ever entered. The Imperial Council gathered again immediately. Everyone expected panic, but surprisingly, the room stayed calm. The Emperor listened quietly, his eyes fixed on the floating hologram of the new signal. It was simple, but it felt intentional, as if it was waiting to be noticed. One researcher spoke first. "We believe this signal is very old. It doesn't appear to be a live transmission." Another added, "It could be a marker, a point of reference, maybe a trail left behind." A leader leaned forward. A trail leading where? No one answered, but everyone knew the truth they were avoiding. It might be pointing toward where humans went. The council debated for hours. Some argued that they must follow the signal. Others insisted they should stay away, remembering the original warning. The room filled with quiet tension. voices rising just a little, hands clasped tightly on the table. Finally, the Emperor raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "We will not chase humans," he said calmly. "But we also cannot ignore something they left behind. We will send a small group, not to pursue, not to interfere, but to understand. We must learn why these signals exist." He paused and added something no one expected. "And we must learn what humans wanted to protect us from." The decision was made. A new exploration group was formed, smaller and more cautious than the first. These crews were chosen not for bravery, but for patience. They were instructed clearly: observe only, record everything, and do not disturb anything human-made. When the new fleet launched, citizens gathered in public squares to watch the ships rise into the sky. Some watched with excitement, others with worry. The launch didn't feel like a mission. It felt like a step into a story, larger than their entire history. As the fleet traveled, the Empire's scientists continued studying the first structure. They found something even more unusual. The structure seemed to be adapting. Very slowly, almost unnoticeably, but the readings proved it was adjusting its outer rings. Not in a mechanical way, but in a fluid, natural way, like a living system responding to the star's changes. This discovery shocked the scientists more than anything else. A machine that adjusted itself without any control signals? A structure that responded to its environment like a living organism? It didn't make sense. The Empire had built machines that repaired themselves, but nothing like this, nothing so smooth, so graceful, so perfect. Machines always acted like machines. This human creation acted like something else, something designed with such depth that even the Empire's greatest minds couldn't explain it. One scientist quietly whispered to the others, "Humans didn't just build technology. They built understanding." Meanwhile, the second fleet continued deeper into unknown space. The stars grew faint again, the darkness thick. But unlike the first mission, this journey felt heavier. Every crew member wondered if they were following the path humans once walked. They didn't speak these thoughts out loud, but the silence inside the ship said enough. Finally, after weeks of travel, the weak pulse grew stronger. The fleet emerged into a region darker than any they had seen before, a place where light felt swallowed by the void. And in the center of that darkness was something almost invisible unless viewed from the right angle. A tiny sphere, smooth, quiet, almost perfectly black dot. At first, the crew thought it was a shadow. But as they got closer, the sensors detected patterns on the sphere's surface, the same patterns as the first structure around the star dot. It was human-made. The sphere didn't glow. It didn't move. It didn't send any new signals. It simply existed, floating gently in the vast emptiness. The crew stared at it, confused, trying to understand its purpose. They circled it slowly. They scanned it carefully. The readings made no sense. The sphere didn't reflect light normally. It didn't absorb energy the way it should. It behaved like something that wasn't supposed to exist at all. Finally, someone whispered the question on everyone's mind. What did humans make this for? The ship's systems captured every detail, every measurement, every image. But the more data they collected, the more mysterious the sphere became. It didn't look dangerous. It didn't feel like a weapon. It didn't feel like a machine. It felt more like a marker, a reminder, or a key to something still hidden. Before leaving, the crew noticed something else. The sphere was slowly rotating, not randomly, not freely, but precisely following a pattern that matched the pulse of the signal. It was communicating, not with them, but with something they couldn't detect. The fleet didn't stay long. They followed their orders, recorded everything, and turned back. Their return took long weeks. During that time, conversations filled their quiet ship about humans, about the star structure, about the sphere, about the message. about what all of this meant. By the time they reached Imperial space again, everyone on board knew the same truth. Humans didn't leave the galaxy by accident. They left something behind on purpose. And whatever they left was only beginning to reveal itself. The Empire would change. The galaxy would change. And the truth about humans was still far from fully uncovered. When the human ship disappeared, the sky above the Imperial capital slowly returned to normal. The clouds drifted back into place, and the strange hum in the air faded away. People stepped out of their shelters, looking up with mixed feelings: fear, curiosity, and something they had not felt in centuries: humility. It was the kind of silence that arrives only when an entire world is trying to understand what it has just seen. The Empire had always believed it was strong. Strong enough to rule star systems. Strong enough to silence any rival. Strong enough to predict every threat. But everything that had happened in the last few days had torn that belief apart. The one vessel humanity sent, just one, had walked through every defense the Empire had. And it wasn't even trying to fight. That fact alone shook the Empire more than any battle ever could. Across the capital and all major worlds, people gathered in public squares, talking in low voices. Some were scared, some excited, and some just confused. They kept asking each other the same questions. Who were the humans really? Where had they been all this time? And the question that frightened them the most: why did their technology look like something built by a civilization far older, far wiser, and far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever known? Inside the great council hall, the highest leaders of the Empire sat around a long circular table. Holograms glowed in front of each of them, images of the abandoned megastructure, sensor logs of the human ship, and the final decoded layer of the original signal. Most of them looked exhausted. Some hadn't slept since the human ship arrived. One of the older council members stared at the decoded map of coordinates. The dots stretched across the galaxy like a web of forgotten monuments. After a long silence, he finally said, "These structures, they cover more space than our entire empire." Another council member replied, "And that's only what we've decoded. There may be more." They spoke softly, afraid of their own voices. For years, the Empire had treated humans as an old story, almost like a ghost tale. Something told to children, not something that could ever be real. But now, with undeniable proof in front of them, everything they once believed turned out to be too small, too simple, too arrogant. An officer from the security division entered with a report. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "We have finished analyzing the incident with our weapons. The human ship didn't disable them by force." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It corrected them." One of the council members frowned. "Corrected?" The officer nodded. "Yes, our weapons were unstable. The energy buildup would have caused a chain reaction. If fired, the blast could have wiped out several ships, maybe more. The human system didn't stop the attack. It simply prevented an accident." A bitter silence filled the room. They had tried to attack the human ship, and instead of punishing them, the humans made sure they didn't blow themselves up. This small gesture hit the Empire harder than 1,000 defeats. It wasn't mercy. It wasn't threat. It was something much worse for their pride. It was pity. Outside the council hall, word began spreading among the population. People who once believed the Empire was unbeatable now whispered about the humans with awe. News shows played the recordings again and again. The calm voice from the human ship echoed across every screen. "Do not mimic what you cannot survive." It sounded less like a warning, and more like advice from someone who had seen things too dangerous to describe. Many citizens started to wonder, if humans had so many advanced structures, why were they hidden? Why were they hidden? Why weren't humans ruling the galaxy? Why did they disappear? Some people suggested humans had evolved into something beyond normal civilizations. Others believed humans had faced a threat so powerful that they were forced to change in order to survive. A few even thought humans were protecting younger civilizations by staying in the shadows. No one knew for sure. And the uncertainty scared them more than any weapon. On the Imperial research worlds, scientists worked day and night studying the coordinates left behind in the signal. Each location seemed to hide something huge, ancient, and beyond anything the Empire had built. Some marks pointed to dormant structures inside asteroid belts, some to objects orbiting dead stars, and some to empty regions of space where sensors showed faint anomalies. One scientist stared at the map for hours, unable to look away. She whispered quietly to her colleague, "They built these things like we build small machines, and they left them scattered across the galaxy, like forgotten tools." Her colleague replied softly, "Then what do their real machines look like?" The question left both of them uneasy. Meanwhile, on the military side, high-ranking officers gathered in private meetings. They looked tense and frustrated. For generations, the Empire had used its military to control and expand. But now they faced a truth they could not ignore. Their entire fleet, no matter how large, would be useless against human technology. An officer slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot just accept this. We are the Empire. We cannot let fear rule us." Another officer shook his head. "This is not fear. This is reality. We saw what one human ship did. Imagine what a fleet could do." They went quiet. A young strategist, who had stayed silent for most of the meeting, finally spoke. "Maybe we are thinking about this the wrong way," he said. "Humans didn't attack us. They warned us. They protected us from our own mistake. Maybe they don't want war." Everyone turned to him. He continued, "Maybe they know something we don't, something dangerous, something they are trying to prepare the galaxy for." His words left a heavy feeling in the room. Weeks passed, but the impact of the human visit only grew stronger. The Empire tried to study the abandoned megastructure again, but its systems had changed. The readings no longer made sense, as if the structure had shifted into a new form after the human ship appeared. Some believed humanity had updated or locked it. Others believed the structure had only been sleeping, and the human ship awakened it in some unknown way. Either way, the Empire understood one thing clearly. They were dealing with a civilization far beyond their reach. Across the galaxy, ordinary people began to feel differently about the Empire and themselves. Many said the encounter with humans taught them a kind of humility they'd never known. Some felt grateful that humans, despite their unimaginable power, chose not to harm anyone. Others felt uneasy, wondering what else humans were capable of. But most people agreed on one simple truth: humans were not a myth anymore. They were real, and they were nothing like what the Empire expected. Back in the council hall, the highest leaders made a final decision. They would stop trying to copy human technology. They would focus on stabilizing the Empire, improving life for citizens, and avoiding reckless experiments. They realized trying to imitate human power could lead to destruction. The humans themselves had warned them of that. One council member summed it up quietly. They transcended. They moved beyond everything we know. Chasing them will only break us. As the days turned into weeks, a strange peace settled over the Empire. Not peace out of strength, but peace born from understanding that the universe was much larger and more mysterious than they ever thought. Late one night, on a hill overlooking the capital city, a group of students watched the stars. One of them pointed to a faint patch of light in the sky. "Do you think the humans are out there?" she asked softly. Another replied, "They probably are. And if they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already." A third student added, "Maybe they're waiting for us to grow up, to stop fighting, to understand the things they already learned." They fell silent, watching the night sky sparkle with countless stars. Somewhere among those stars, humanity had left behind its invisible mark vast structures, forgotten technologies, and mysteries too deep to explain. The Empire could only wonder about them now, no longer with arrogance, but with respect. The encounter had changed everything. It broke old pride, ended old ambitions, and opened a new way of thinking. People now saw the galaxy as a much bigger place, full of secrets that even the Empire could not control. In the end, the Empire accepted the truth they once refused to believe. Humans did not just advance. They became something beyond understanding. And the galaxy, whether ready or not, was living in the shadow of their forgotten creations.